Hi, everybody. So my name is Chandler Weiner. That's how you say my last name, Weiner. This is my first time coming to both a WordPress meetup as well as WordPress Orlando meetup. So I'm excited to be here. And I'm going to be talking to you guys about Hacktoberfest. What the heck is Hacktoberfest? But before we get into that, we have to talk about some basics about Git, GitHub, and how that works in your WordPress world. I also wanted to just take a moment to say thank you to the WordPress Orlando people for allowing me to come in and give this talk, and obviously for full sale for our nice space. I already have the entire Google Doc PowerPoint slide up on my site, chandlerweiner.com. You're certainly welcome to pull it up and follow along with me. And like I said, you should probably know a little bit more about me, because this is not only the first time that I've seen a lot of you, this is the first time you've seen me. So I am the owner of Obsessive WP. We obsess over your WordPress site, so you don't have to. Everything from hosting, care plans, and site design. I have a blog at my site. I'm also working on a Points and Miles blog, because I like to travel for nothing. If Chase and Amex and stuff want to pay for me to travel, I'll certainly take that. That's supposed to be a little thumbs up emoji for work in progress, but it's always good when there's a wonderful error during a presentation. But anyway, I have a tiny little project that this time of year, October for me is Hacktober. It's Hacktoberfest. And there are a whole bunch of companies that give out free stuff during Hacktoberfest. I have a little open source project that anybody can put a company on the list if they're offering something, but we'll get into that later. If you want to follow me on Twitter or GitHub, that's where I am. So like I said, we're going to be talking about the basics of Git and GitHub, as well as how this works in your WordPress world. And then at the very end, we're going to use all of the knowledge that you have just learned and tell you about how you can participate in Hacktoberfest and earn some sweet free swag. If you haven't had a chance yet to grab a GitHub cheat sheet from over there, there's no harm, no foul. You can stand up and go ahead and grab it. And DigitalOcean was kind to send some Sammy the Shark stickers too. So if you want additional free swag, go grab. But the GitHub cheat sheet, the Git cheat sheet, we're going to be looking at a bit later on. I just want to make sure you guys have a copy. Okay. How many of you know what Git is? Okay, about half. How many of you actually use Git on a regular basis? About the same people that know who Git is, or what Git is. Perfect, because this is an entry-level talk. If I had a whole room full of people that raised their hands, you would have been bored. So I'm very happy that we have the proper audience for this. There's going to be a lot of puns in here, so I hope you're as Gitty as I am. So we'll get down to business now. Git is a version control tracker for your software. It's written by Linus Torvalds. In case that name is familiar, Linus equals Linux, the Linux operating system. So he is not only known for the Linux kernel, rather, but also for writing Git. Because it is a version control tracking software, it allows for you to have iterative backups of each change that you made in your code. Git is also open source by nature and allows for anybody else to also contribute to your code and help fix things. So this is a basic flow chart of how the overarching concept of Git works. So you're going to start working on something locally on your own PC. If you are trying to write a plugin for WordPress, if you're trying to work on a theme, if you're trying to fix CSS issues, whatever you're trying to do, you're going to start working on that locally. Once you've made your changes, you'll then tell this software versioning program Git, hey, I like what I've done, let's save this for later. That is when we have moved basically from a working area into having things be staged. Once you have a whole bunch of things staged up, you can then commit all of those changes to a thing called a repository. We're going to start talking about that later on, but basically the repository, or the repo for short, is the official record of all of those changes. So this is the steps that that you would go through when you're using Git. And if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me. You don't have to wait till the very end. So Git, for the most part, is a command line tool. It was first written that way, and that's still where it is the most powerful. That's why you all have a Git cheat sheet. For those of you that stare at the terminal and you think that you're entering the matrix and you don't know what to quite do, follow this and you'll be fine. But if you are a visual person, as almost all of us are, there are visual ways in order to interact with Git, so that way you can use the power of all this version tracking without having to, make sure that you type everything right, or else you delete your whole project. These are some great tools to use Git visually versus just from the command line interface. We're going to be talking a little bit later about Atom, which is a text editor made by GitHub and GitHub Desktop. But all of these work. There's all kinds of ways you can visually interact with Git. Now, remember that last step is after you have made the list of the things that you're going to commit to your repo, you need to have a place to put it. You can certainly run your own repository locally on your computer, but there's no fun in that because no one can help you. And there's no backups if your computer goes pfft. So these are the three main Git repository companies. They all have free tiers. GitHub is obviously the largest of them. GitLab, I believe, is independent. I don't remember who owns them. Bitbucket is an Atlassian product, if I'm saying that right. So if you use Trello, I hate Trello, but if you use Trello, you can click a few tabs over, get into Bitbucket, and play around with a Git repo over there. And I'm glad no one threw a dagger at me when I said I hate Trello. I always worry about bringing that up. Okay. So how do you set things up? If you are on a Mac, you need to install Xcode. Xcode's going to have Git for you. If you're on Linux, you're cool. You'd probably be a minority sitting here that's running Linux as their desktop. I love you kind of people. Git is definitely installed in all the major Linux distros by default. If you are on Windows, there is a thing called Git for Windows, which you can install that way. Or if you use the package manager Chocolatey, do you guys know what that is? It's basically a way to do like Linux package managing for Windows. There's a way you can install Git through there. But basically, all you have to do, if you don't have Git natively, head to the official website, and as usual, click till things work. You all know how to install software, I'm pretty sure. And like I had said, there's many different visual ways that we can interact with Git. I like Atom, which is a text editor. This is where you can actually write code. Atom has an extension built into it where you can automatically push things up to your GitHub repo. GitHub Desktop is good for something we're going to get into later on. This is a lot less powerful because this is basically the website in a web app or in a desktop web app. That is a lot more powerful, but we'll go into that in a bit. So I've talked about GitHub a lot. This is from their own site. GitHub is a code hosting platform for version control and collaboration, and it lets you and others work on projects from anywhere. In case you don't know, GitHub was bought by Microsoft. I believe it was last year. It's about a year-ish. And they had when Microsoft bought them, they opened up a lot of things that used to be only for paid people for free. So there is a wonderful wealth of stuff that you can get for free. If you don't have a GitHub account, definitely make one because we're going to be talking about swag later, and you need one to earn some swag. So GitHub has their own lingo for how the Git program interacts with it. So as I said, you have your repo. That's basically your bucket on the internet where all your code lives. Repos can be public or private, which is as the name sounds, and all of that is free. There is no limit for the number of public or private repos that you can have. There's no limit on the number of storage space that those things take up. You can just fill it with like backups of your class notes if you want. You can just copy and paste notes, like whatever you want. You can dump it in a GitHub repo. And then we're going to get into some technical terms that I'll be talking about these more in depth later on. But the term of branching, so if you are creating something new, if you're creating a new feature, or if you're trying to fix some sort of bug, you don't want to be cowboy coding and trying to fix things on the live site or the live environment or the live whatever, right? So what you can do through GitHub is make a branch, which is say, all right, cool, copy everything I have from this, move it over to here, now let me start working over here. That way everything that you have in your first set of code is still running just fine, and you can focus on a clone, a copy of what you're actually working on. A fork is when you can make your own copy of someone else's project. So because there are open source, there are open GitHub repos, you can just click a button to make a copy of someone else's repo, and then you can use that to make your own internal changes, or you can submit a pull request back to them. What a pull request is it's saying, hey, I've changed something and I want to give it back to you. So that way you can integrate it into your main product. You can also use pull requests between your own branches. So once you've created a branch and fixed your problem or added a new image or code or whatever, you will need to then open up a pull request to pull that branch back into your main branch. Is that making sense so far?
Yep.
Yes?
What if you don't like the change that the other person did to your code?
You don't have to accept it. You can give them a big old or, as you'll see later, GitHub would encourage you to collaborate and try and work on it and go back and forth and say, cool, like, why did you upload a picture that's like 4 meters big for my website? You can go back and collaborate. Depending on also how you have your repo set up and how they have their pull request set up, the owner of the repo that is receiving the pull request can reach into the individual's fork and make changes themselves. Does that make sense? I know that was a lot of jargon. But so that way, if there is something small, you as the receiver of the pull request can, for the most part, just make that quick change and then say, cool, thank you, and we can move on from there. Pull requests do not have to be accepted. You can reject them, or what's called a merge them in, which is when you take someone's code and say, thank you, you're awesome, and it slides into your main repo. Yes?
Can you have more than one branch at a time?
Absolutely. Yes, you can have branches off of branches off of branches. So, yes. Well, it depends how much of a headache you want to give yourself. But yes, you can have multiple branches. So people that write code for a living are not just working on the next version of their software. They're working on that version. There might be a team working on version 2 and a team starting to work on version 3. So you can certainly have a whole bunch of different branches that will end up getting merged at different times or turn stale and go away because no one's working on them. But yes, as many branches as you want, as many forks as you want, and pull requests and so on. Yeah, no limit to those things on GitHub. Good questions. Yes?
Well, what if you incorporate changes from one branch, and there's another branch that was working from the original?
You're seeing some of the problems. Yes. So you can step on your toes, you can step on someone else's toes, when you end up merging things in from a prior branch. But of course, Git has that kind of already built in a way to figure these things out. If you try to merge something that's going to cause a problem when the merge happens, it's called a merge conflict. And Git will back up and say, hold up, no. I can't put two things in the same spot. We're not going to do this. And that's up to you to sort things out and resolve that conflict before the merge can actually happen. Git also has a wonderful feature called rebasing. We'll get into that a bit later on. It should be on your cheat sheet. Look for where it says Git rebase. Somewhere around here. It should be on here. If not, then that's a major miss. Well, okay, I don't think that's on here because rebasing is a little bit difficult. So the way that Git works is you have these little changes as things go on, okay? And each change is its own commit. So what happens is if you create a branch and you're working on something, and what you are going to then pull back into the main repo has some sort of conflict, or the main repo has gone sailing on, you can do what's called a rebase, which is taking your current branch and basically fast forwarding through all the stuff that already happened in the main branch and adding that to yours. Is that making sense? It basically replays everything that you missed onto your branch, so that way you are now caught up.
Wait. So like it does that, and then it holds your changes, and then when it finishes, then pass it on top?
Yes. And then that way your branch is now in sync with the main branch, so that way there should not be any more conflicts when you try to merge things in.
But couldn't there be conflicts in your branch?
Yes. 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 There are conflicts on top of conflicts, and the way that you solve this is, at least how I do it, is starting the merge and seeing what flags as problems, and then going through and actually fixing those individual problems.
And it does insert some notations in the file to say, here's your head.
Correct.
Here's the conflict. And you got to figure it out between humans.
Yes. Yeah. It will show, as you said, there's it uses like a whole bunch of, not brackets, less than and equal to signs and stuff like that to basically say, cool, I need human eyes to look at this because I'm just a computer and two things are in the same spot. Yes?
How do you define a change? Is it every keystroke you make, every time you hit save? Or?
So a change is every time you commit something. Or even move it to, okay, so you once you're working on your code here, you basically, if you are using a visual editor, you'll hit save, and that will then save it to a staging area. Once you then say, cool, I'm all done with these saves, it will then commit everything up.
So every time you save, it replaces the old save?
It replaces it, but it keeps a history of all those old saves. So you can roll back to anything that you have done previously. Every
Committing or before committing, or either?
Either. Yes, either. Because every time that you commit something, you are going to get this really long hash string that says this is the string that identifies this commit. And you can roll back to any of those prior commits. You can also go back from staging back into your whole working repo if you committed, or if you worked on something you don't like it. You don't have to push it to the repo first. Does that make sense? So it's like two different levels of saving. This is like you're working on something, you save it locally, and then you make the gold master copy. And you can keep all your gold master copies and have it roll back to any other time in history. Okay? Yes?
The way that WordPress will show you revision history, where it compares side by side and highlights the changes, does Git have that? Absolutely,
on GitHub. So Git as a command line tool itself won't do those kind of highlighting things for you. But yes, on GitHub, if someone submits a pull request, or if you pull up any prior commits to it, you'll see things in red that were deleted and things in green that were added in.
Can you restrict what part of your code you let people change?
Absolutely, yes. So you can have branches that are locked down branches. That is usually what's called the master branch. So any people that submit a pull request, including your own internal people if you're part of a team, that won't even get considered until a set number of reviewers that you have designated have looked at that pull request and said, yes, this is good. So yes, GitHub by itself does have ways for you to manually go through and approve pull requests or just ignore them totally if it's not a repo that you even want to submit PRs on. And you can solve all that by having your repo set to private, so that way only you see it. Yes?
Sorry. Will Git flag if there's malicious code that's included in
So GitHub will. So GitHub recently bought a company whose name I don't recall, but they will look for things like Amazon AWS S3 keys that you might have in your accounts that shouldn't be public. Hopefully you know that shouldn't be public. It will look for dependencies in your projects if you commit the dependent files to it. I know this is getting a bit technical, but yes, GitHub will flag that. I don't know all the software languages that they're currently looking at, but that is a feature of theirs. Yeah, I can tell you it works for PHP, Ruby, and Go because it flags on my repos all the time.
Well, and there's all kinds of build tools for whatever project you're working on.
Yes, there are.
Set up dependencies and lockdown, things like that, so passwords don't get swapped around and stuff. So.
Or even just that is, if you're using a program that itself might have 100 different other pieces of software that it depends on, you're not going to manually go through and check all those dependencies that there are no CVE vulnerabilities there. As long as you commit all the dependencies also to GitHub, it will look through that and say, cool, you need to upgrade this. And they even have a bot. GitHub has a bot that will open up a pull request for you and say, I see that you have an old version of this code. Here's a pull request. All you do is merge this and your code's fine. There are also 2 third-party companies that I know of that have bots built into GitHub. One's called Greenkeeper, I think, and the other is Renovate. But it's the same thing. It's a bot that looks at your code that says this is old or this is outdated or this has a security vulnerability. Click this button, merge the PR, and we'll fix it for you. Have I answered all the questions for now? Okay, cool. So, Git from the command line. How many of you are scared of the command line? You can be honest. Be honest. Okay.
It's not my favorite thing, but I grew up on the command line. I just prefer doing it.
Yes, I mean I have mine set to like a black screen with green text because I want to think like I'm in the Matrix. But I hope that at the end of all this, you all can get good at Git. So I'm going to go through some of the main things in the GitHub, the Git cheat sheet. Some of the more common things that you're going to be using. If you think the command line is scary, it's not. We're going to stick to some of these things and we're going to work through it. Yes?
Can I get an extra one of those cheat sheets?
They're over there. If someone wants to grab it for you, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Oh, don't mind me. My alarm's just going off. Okay. So when we create something in Git, in the command line, you are on your local computer typing things into your own command line, okay, to your own terminal. So what you would do is you would navigate in your terminal to the folder that all your code is living in. So the desktop, you navigate to the desktop. I hope you don't store all your code there, but wherever you have all of your code set, you can use the CD command for change directory, and then do all your slashes of if you're on Windows C / Windows system user whatever to navigate in your command line to where your code lives locally. So once you have it there, once your terminal knows where all of your code is, we have to set up Git. So the way that we would do that, and these 2 commands you only use the very first time that you install Git locally. You need to tell it what your name is and what your email address is. These 2 things will be public. If you don't want your email address to be public, if you upload to a public GitHub repo, GitHub does offer you free email addresses too, that it's a random string. I think it's at github.io that will forward to your email if you don't want your own email address being out there publicly. Once you have that set up for the first time and you're in your place where your code lives, you need to initiate your repo. You need to initiate your Git install and say start tracking things here. That's used by the git init command and the name you want to give that little project. And what it's going to do, it's going to create a folder called .git, and .git is going to track all of the changes that you make. Okay?
That's stored locally?
That is stored locally, yes. Correct.
Does the name have any restrictions, like spaces, special characters?
I haven't run into anything.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if there is, but I haven't run into anything weird. I don't remember. I've never used special characters in the name of a project, so I don't know.
Give me a second, I'll find out.
I'm not sure.
It depends on your location.
I just use alphanumeric.
For example, if you're computing in a language like Spanish or French that has accents, then
I'm sure that would be fine.
It's Unicode compliant.
Yeah.
So as long as you're using Unicode characters, you should be okay.
Okay.
Like I just tried putting a
We'll do that.
name that GitHub just wipes it.
GitHub wipes it. Okay. So the rules might be different between GitHub and Git, because GitHub is a Microsoft-owned product. Git is something you're running locally. So I'm not sure what the restrictions are between the two of them, or what would happen if you have something with a invalid character in it and then try to push things up. But I will look into that for you. Okay. So once you have that scary command, git init, that's all set up, and you've set up your local coding environment, you need to tell it where we're pushing things up to. Okay? Your computer doesn't all of a sudden know your GitHub account username or anything like that. So we can add a remote storage space to dump things up into. Now, these commands are all different subversions of these commands. There's more intricate ways to do these. This list is just a very basic write something, push it to GitHub, get it done kind of thing. So yes, there are different ways that we can add remote like repos. There's different ways that we can stage all of the changes besides doing git add period. That period is supposed to be there. That's not some sort of typo, git add space period. And as I said, there's other ways that we can do this more selectively, but this is the shotgun approach to get things done. This is Git 101. So that the git add is that second step where we've made our changes, and now we're saying, cool, let's save all of those changes so that way I can commit them to my repo later. Okay? If you need to remove a file from GitHub tracking, Git tracking, it's rm, and that file name. Git checkout is how you're going to say that you're working on a new branch. It's how you create a branch with the -b. The -b will create a new branch for you. Just change that way you're working on that branch. After you have that branch made, and you don't need to make it a second time, you just want to go back to it. You drop the -b. It's just git checkout branch name, and now you're working back in that same branch. And then the important one is the commit message. So this is after you have added everything to the staging part, you have it saved, you said, cool, I want to lock this down, give me a hash that says I've made all of these actual changes. You then do that through the git commit command. -m says your message, and you type it in there. It's much easier to do it this way. If you don't have the -m, it will pull up whatever terminal text editor you have. Nano, hopefully, Vim or Vi or whatever the one that's called that no one likes. So just stick with it, -m, and put in your message. Yes?
Is there a convention or best practices for naming your commits?
Keep it short. Keep it short. Under 75 characters is typically the best recommended way.
Can you add a description to that?
So GitHub lets you add a more lengthy description to your commit message. So you can always go back and do that. But for the kind of 101 way of doing things, stick to under 75 characters in your message here. But yes, you can add a description to be more lengthy.
What I usually do is add the Jira ticket numbers, those whatever little title, and that's it, or you can do a sign or whatever.
Yeah. Question, sir?
If I have something staging,
Yes, sir.
I use the Git rm to remove it from staging, but is that gonna
So
pick it up?
this specific command here will both remove that file from your computer's hard drive, and it would be git rm -- caching. That should be one of the options that you have on here. Sorry, -- cached. So the cached flag will say remove it from tracking on Git, but keep the local copy on my computer, please.
I have experience with Git and GitHub.
Mm-hmm.
Git checkout and filing will remove it from staging.
Git checkout what? Sorry.
And filing
Okay.
will remove it from staging.
We're all learning together. Yay.
So it's not going to remove it from the computer.
And then your other main commands you're going to be using is pushing, pulling, and merging. So once you have set where your upstream is, where your GitHub repo lives, you then can push things up to the proverbial cloud. If you are on github.com and you're making your changes on the website and now your local copy is out of sync, you can pull and merge things back down. Or pull does a merge too. Otherwise, git merge is how you will shove a branch into your other branch and merge your code together. Questions about these things? Okay. You can take a breather.
I was going to mention, usually when you are sending it to the cloud, to the GitHub, there might be a security component of it.
Yes, so SSH keys, something. So if there is some sort of key that you need to add, there is some sort of problem during a push, you will get a readout locally that says, hey, you haven't added your like SSH keys or some other way to actually talk to that GitHub repo. Yes. But that's kind of, again, beyond the 101 scope of things, but there will be some error that will come up if you haven't set this up previously, and it'll walk you through it of what to end up doing. You're absolutely right. All right, let's look at pretty things now. Buttons. Buttons, not just walls of text. So this is GitHub Desktop, and to show you that, yes, in green, GitHub will show you things that are added in this commit. It'll show you things in red, things that were pulled out. So GitHub Desktop is a desktop app for the website in order to show things a little bit differently. I also use GitHub Desktop as a way to just say, cool, start tracking this folder on my computer here, and it immediately adds it to a Git repo that I name. I don't need to do the git init and set upstream all that stuff from the command line. I can just say, look at this folder here. This is really great for WordPress people if you set up a local server, something like Local by Flywheel, or MAMP, or MAP, or MAMP, thank you, or desktop server, all the other ways that you can run a compressed server locally. Local by Flywheel is one of the easiest ways of actually doing that, and you can just say, cool, GitHub Desktop, look at the storage at the place that the Local by Flywheel stores its code, upload that to a private repo. That way you have a backup set up there. I will be getting through other ways that we can interact with WordPress and Git and GitHub, but that's just something to think about for now. And if we have good internet, we can go through a little quick video of using Atom, which is the text editor that has GitHub built into it. So you see our person here is making a quick change. We're going to go from version 0.19.0 to .1. He's just made that change. It's immediately said that it is unstaged. You've just made that change. It is now staged. It's now been saved. And this is your commit message. It's been committed. That's the commit-m. And clicking right here pushes it up to GitHub. So that was the three-step process done really quickly. We can watch this again. And then here there's going to the GitHub tab, and they are like looking at all the open pull requests that have been made of either you saying you want to add something to your own branches, you want to change your code, or pull requests that the public has then sent. And they click the checkout button, which is Git checkout, which is pulling in their changes to something you can see locally and test. So let's go through that again. I know it's a very fast video. But we make a change visually. It's been saved, but we haven't said that, yes, I certainly want to keep this change. You can see the difference between the two versions. Click on the stage button. It's been staged. That's the second step. The commit step is, yes, please absolutely make a gold master copy of all these things that I've saved. Pushing it up to GitHub. And once it's done, it's done. So that change has been made locally. And then here, they're just pulling in a pull request and checking it out, so that way it starts downloading that pull request locally, and they can look at the code changes that were made locally.
Even though they're already local, because they just made them local. But, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a tutorial video.
Right. At the same time, you could have 4 other people doing the same thing.
Yes.
You want to get the latest from them too.
Yes, definitely.
Let me recap here too, Alex. So you basically, there's something in the server, like a branch or something, and you said you pull it down, and then you check it out. Is that what's happening? Or you check it out and it pulls it down at the same time? So.
Visually, it's doing that both at the same time. It's creating a branch of whatever that person is that submitted code to your site, or you. It's creating a branch and then pulling down that code into that local branch. Yes, it is doing both of those things visually here. Atom is free. It's really lightweight. You're certainly welcome to play around with it. Yes?
I might be missing something.
No, you're good.
Missing something. What's the point of staging?
So staging means that you can stack up all of the changes that you have made and make one large commit that has everything in it, versus committing every single line change separately.
When you make the commit, can you still look back and see the components, the different...
Yes, you can. It's a bit harder, but yes. Typically, it's easier to just see each commit because you can do things like even squash commits into one larger one. If you've made a commit, then you're saying all my staging stuff is fine. So it is much easier to roll back to prior commits than it is to break out some staging stuff that was inside of that commit. It can be done, but I wouldn't do that.
Are you testing it while it's in the staging?
Yes. Yes, because you're running things locally, you should be testing things locally. And let's say they needed to make, in this example here, the change of that version number across 20 different files. You don't want to commit that all separately, because your history, your log of every change that you have made is going to be muddied by making one document, like one letter, one number changes, and committing all those up separately. So the staging environment lets you stack all of your changes into one commit, and that commit is what gets pushed up, and then given that hash number for you to roll back to. Okay. So I talked a bit about the workflow for GitHub, but we're going to go through it a little bit more visually here. So across the top of this bar here is the master code. This is the main set. And you're trying to in your own project, either create a change or fix something, while you can, in your own project, make commits directly to the master code. That's like cowboy coding. That's like having your client site up and updating the plugins live on their site by clicking the yes, update all 27, all at once. And then you cross your fingers and toes and hope that there's no like PHP timeouts, right? We've all done this once or twice. That's not a way you should properly do things, obviously. So in Git or GitHub, we can create a branch. This is, you say, I'm going to make some sort of change. You then send your commits to that branch. You have checked out that branch. You are committing your changes to that branch. Then you open up a pull request to move those changes eventually, hopefully, unless you just spammed some public repo, back into the main branch. This is the, if you don't like it, you can talk about it. side on GitHub, or this is also if you don't like about it, you can send them negative emojis and just close it and the end. GitHub does have a wonderful invalid label you can slap on it to just give them an extra little heartbreak. But to be honest with you, if you do have open source code, you are going to get random spam sometimes, especially during Hacktoberfest where people are trying to just get free stuff by spamming everybody that they can. So closing things is just as important as actually ended up merging them. So this is where after if this is not your prod, if someone has submitted a pull request to your project, you can then check out their local their changes locally, test things like locally. If everything looks kosher to you, you can make everybody's life wonderful and smile and merge the pull request back up to the main branch. Does this step process make sense? All of this can be done on github.com. All this can be done on the GitHub app or any other app that I had pulled up. And this can all be done in Git via the command line too. But it's obviously, except for the commenting stuff. But this is a lot prettier to do it this way. Question?
Can you block someone, like if they're repeatedly spamming your code?
So GitHub does allow you to block. You can, I think you can both either mute or block. And importantly, they do have ways to report harassment. So if that is going on in your repo, which actually had happened in my Hacktoberfest swag list repo, they are very proactive of saying, you, bye, and they're kicked off of GitHub. So yes, you absolutely can. All right, so now that you saw the step process, this is how you can visually do it on either github.com or through the GitHub desktop app. They look similar enough. Yes, they do look a little bit different, but this is how you would basically do things. So on the GitHub website, you can either click a big button right up here that says fork if you're copying someone else's project. Once that copy has been made, or you're working on just your own project, there's a big button where you can drop down and change to create a new branch or choose other prior branches. And don't worry, I'll show you how all this works on the live website. Oh, goodness, that squished. Okay, so GitHub, the website, does not allow for you to stack multiple staging things into one commit. GitHub, the website, will commit every change that you make to the website. So if you go in and on the website change your README file or your license or your whatever, each one of those changes will be its own separate commit to your gold master copy. So you can fiddle around on the site, make your changes there. You can also choose down here if at this point you want to create a new branch for this change or have this change go to the current branch that you are working on. And then we open a pull request to pull things in. And then, yay, we can merge the pull request if everything looks good. And don't worry, again, I'll show you how all this stuff looks later. This is what you should do if all of this made no sense. Or if you want to play around with GitHub, do this, lab.github.com. It is free. It's a completely free way for you to play around with GitHub, all of the interactions that it has. Basically, this little helpful catbot installs as an app on GitHub and will literally walk you through what to click. You will get messages that pop up. You'll get emails that say, cool, you did this. Now literally click here. Lab.github.com. Create a GitHub account. Learn how to do all of this for free using their bot that walks you through it.
But that won't teach you how to use Git. It's just
GitHub, correct. It's just GitHub, yes. Right, but if you want to stick to visual things and you want to stick to GitHub, you can do a lot on GitHub directly. yes, Git via the command line is going to be way more powerful. Git via a text editor like Atom is going to be way more powerful than what you can do on GitHub.com. But as far as that lingo of having how to open a pull request, how to create a fork, how to do all of this stuff, if you want hands-on practice time with it, this is the best way, lab.github.com.
There's also a website called freecodecamp.org.
Yes, I was going to get into Quincy.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Quincy Larson, yeah. But yes, free code camp. So free code camp, for those that participated in or know about Hacktoberfest, they were really, really big in Hacktoberfest for the last 2 years, and they are, as the name says, a free website for you to learn how to code. They have all different kinds of languages, and yes, they do have a full course on Git and GitHub. Free Code Camp is cool because they do give you a certificate at the end that says you have passed this. And I mean, people do use those certificates to get jobs or get raises, or just say, hey, I know how to do this, I promise. Like, this little piece of paper says so.
Well, employers do look at your GitHub.
Yes, so if you are going for some sort of coding job, or even if you're like working marketing at a tech-savvy company and you have a GitHub account, what's public there is public. You can think about it as your social media profile for nerds. And yes, you can certainly be looked at publicly. But anyway, that's what so the GitHub Learning Lab has a whole bunch of different things that you can do. It's not just GitHub specific, it's mostly GitHub stuff, but this is the specific course, the Introduction to GitHub course on the Learning Lab that is the best for GitHub 101, help you walk through stuff. So, why we're all here. WordPress, right? How on earth did all this apply to WordPress? How many of you do any sort of coding that is outside of WordPress? Okay, more people than I had thought, actually. How many then are just WordPress specific? That's all that you work on is just WordPress. Okay. Well, I want to show you ways that we can hook up Git and GitHub into your WordPress, considering that that's what we're all here for. So, WordPress, known for its plugins, right? Obviously. So there's a plugin for that, and not just one plugin. There's like 80 plugins for that. These are some of the plugins that are best used if you're trying to integrate Git into your WordPress world. So VersionPress, Gideum, and Revisor are all plugins that will help for you to push the changes that you're making on your WordPress site to a GitHub or Bitbucket or GitLab repo. VersionPress also maintains your VersionPress and like Gideon, but VersionPress a little bit cleaner, maintains on the server that your website is sitting on a Git repo that tracks all those changes locally. The most features of VersionPress are just accessible via WP CLI, WordPress command line interface project. But both of these then they're more visual. WP Pusher and WP Migrate DB Pro. I'm sure you've heard of the Delicious Brains folks. They make wonderful, wonderful products. This WP Pusher is specifically a way to help push and pull plugins and themes to and from WordPress sites. Migrate DB Pro allows for you to do something where you have a local copy of WordPress on your machine that you're running locally, and you're committing everything to your GitHub repo, and that GitHub repo is then building the live WordPress site. You need to get your database from your local copy that you are actually working on to the live site, right? This is not quite headless WordPress, it's split body WordPress, where you're running your WordPress site locally. That way you can use Git and track these changes, and then when you say, cool, I've made all the changes that I want to on my WordPress site, versus hitting publish on the live site, you hit publish on your local site, those get sent up to GitHub through one of these 3 top plugins, and then you can use like WP Pusher to help move some code over, or Migrate DB Pro to migrate your database up to the live site. Yes?
You may be covering this, but Pantheon.io,
Yes.
they're a good host for this. They actually, their whole platform is built on the Git Workflow.
Yes.
It does all of this stuff. And
Yes.
You can use WP CLI, they have a tremendous command line. They've got all kinds of plugins that will do most of this stuff.
Yes. Pantheon is a managed WordPress host, so I'm sure like if you guys have heard of Flywheel or Kinsta or the other managed WordPress hosts, Pantheon does that. They also work with Drupal. I don't know how many of you also WordPress and Drupal, but yes, their whole flow is very like it's dev and staging and then live or something like that. Yes, that tends to be a little bit of a barrier for some people that are just getting into WordPress or want to just start to learn how to use Git. But don't be scared by it. The steps of having your test environment and your dev environment and your live environment separate is very, very good. At the very least, what you should be doing if you use a managed WordPress host, sorry for my phone, if you use a managed WordPress host, is to use the staging tools that WordPress managed host has. That's essentially like creating a branch of your WordPress site for you to make your changes in, and then they'll always have a way for you to move those staging changes back to the live site. Okay, demo time. Okay, where are, oh goodness, the resolution on my screen. Oh, that's great. Do I remember the password for this demo site I set up? I don't. Hold on. Oh God. There we go. Okay, so I have a demo site set up, just an IP address here. It's nothing fancy. But I wanted to show you what these plugins kind of look like. Now, you wouldn't necessarily be running all these plugins at the same time because they're crazy and they can conflict with each other. But I just wanted to show you how things look. So this is Gideum, that plugin I had here. So what this is showing when you pull up the main plugin, shush, is these are changes that Gideum is seeing on the upstream GitHub repo that you made on github.com for some reason that you haven't yet pulled down to your actual WordPress site. So if there was something that you had done, you can pull it down here. So this is the commit history that Gideum has. So this shows you a truncated version of the commit hash and what things were changed in that commit. Okay? Are you with me so far? So this is a visual way of showing what things have changed, and any changes that you make to your WordPress site are going to be tracked. A commit will be made in Git, and that commit will be pushed up to GitHub. That way you have a backup of it stored on GitHub. Settings is as the name sounds, just settings. So this is version press. Version press is a little prettier, but the things that you can do visually are more limited. So just to show you, version press will do things like keep track of changes that you've made in your plugins. So you can pull up any changes that have been made. You can click on View Diff to view what has changed. And you can see here, I changed from a github.io free URL to a test domain that I have here. And importantly, you can undo those changes, which just reverts that one change. Or you can roll back the whole site to a point, and it will undo all the changes that were above that. So if you created a new user, if you installed a new plugin, if you changed a setting in your theme, all of that is tracked by Git, and then all of that we can show up in the version press plugin, and you can undo those changes. The command line interface for this plugin also allows for you to have a staging site set up and do your merge back in from your staging to your live site.
When it tracks database changes, is it exporting the database, writing to the database in the file, and then like tracking the changes in a file situation, or is it actually doing it natively in the database?
I'm not sure.
That seems like a really sticky.
Yes, I'm not sure. I mean, this is not the database itself. This is just the, you know, the text options of a different plugin. But as far as handling the database, and as far as handling stuff that you don't want to have public, you need to make sure that things that you are pushing up to GitHub, if you're pushing up to a public repo, are things that you don't mind the public seeing. For example, some things that you should not have pushed up publicly is your WP config file. Why? This has your database passwords in plain text. You don't want that public, right? So when you are using a plugin like Gideum, it will automatically create a .gitignore file, which is, as the name says, if you see this file in the folder that Git is tracking, don't push that up, please. Leave it there. I need it. Don't push it up, please. Which means that if you are only using Git and GitHub as a backup, please don't only use that as a backup, of your site, you need to make sure that you're still backing up things that are not being tracked by Git through a .gitignore file. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, I will come back to the demo later, after a little bit here. All right, let's go back to here. Okay. How many of you play around with static websites? Static sites, not WordPress, but static sites. Just a few. So here's the thing, right? Static sites were all the rage. How many of you started off in Macromedia Dreamweaver like I did? Yeah, that's literally static. That's FTP static. That's early static. That's caveman static. That's chiseling on rock static.
What do you mean? That's advanced, bro.
Yeah. I hope you're not as old as me. It's, again, using not even like Adobe, Macromedia Dreamweaver. Back in those days, yeah. So a static site is, as the name says, what you see is the same as what everyone else is going to see. There's no dynamic elements to it. WordPress is a dynamic website in the sense that the page that you are seeing is generated for you, either as a logged in user, as a random user, as whatever. The page that you see is static to you, but it was generated just for you. Okay? Static websites are coming back, not in the Dreamweaver kind of way, but they're coming back in the modern internet that we have because they're very, very fast. If you have just one version of a page, you can serve that. There's no thought that goes into creating that page for each individual person. So there are some plugins here that help if you are looking to use WordPress as a way to generate websites by using themes and tools like Beaver Builder or Astra or whatever, so that when you have a front-end way to build a website, you can then create a static version, just a one-off shot of that page, submit that to your server, and that's one page that'll get sent to everyone. Does that make sense? So Simply Static and WP2 Static are the two main programs that do this. And I want to show you how that works. So up here, I have an Astra site. Oh God, the resolution, the scaling. Okay, Ignore the scaling issues as it shows up on this screen here. This looks better on a widescreen, promise. That isn't running over a VGA cable. But anyway, if this is just an Astra default theme for Beaver Builder, okay, with all its default stuff, in it. Here it's running off the live Git site, the live WordPress site, and all its pages and blog posts and stuff are here, right? And this is WordPress as you know it. Well, this right here is WP2 Static. It's one of the plugins I had on my prior slide that's going to help you create a static version of that site. This is a random domain that I have that I wasn't using anything for, so I shoved it into here. But I am having this plugin create a static version of my site, upload it to GitHub through a thing called GitHub Pages. GitHub Pages will host your sites for free. Absolutely free. Add a URL that you have set, and there is a training module that GitHub has on its lab that'll tell you how to set up GitHub Pages. That's not a talk that I'm going to get into at this point. But there are so many other different static places that you can send your static version of your site to. So zip archive, if you want to store it locally or do something else with it. And this plugin has automated ways for you to push things to an Amazon S3 bucket, Bitbucket, which is another repo company or repo place, Bunny CDN, which is CDN that I love. If you haven't used them, they're like really cheap and they're really good CDN. I don't earn anything from that, promise, but they're really great for WordPress. GitHub Pages, GitLab, Netlify is a static website host, or push it over FTP. So all you need to do is set this up. You can get into the advanced options and crawling rates and all that kind of stuff. But then it will set up a static version of your site. So I'd see that I had told it to go to Hacktoberfest events.com as its like static version. So I have my GitHub Pages account set up to receive the pushed static versions of a site to here. And here is our static version of our WordPress site. Again, it's squished from the VGA cable, but running on GitHub and not charging us anything at all. So what does this mean? If you're building a WordPress site for a client that has a site that is not going to be updated frequently, they want a site. There is no faster way to build it than using a tool you're already familiar with. And if you're familiar with WordPress, stick to it. There's no faster way to serve a site to your client's customers than if the site is a static site. There's no easier way to do that than by using plugins. And if you can save on your hosting costs, where it costs you nothing or next to nothing using one of those other options on that drop-down list, your client doesn't know that. And you can still serve them, a WordPress site statically.
I have so many questions.
Yes. Yes.
So, is it also putting up the JavaScript and everything up there?
Yes.
It's just detaching the CMS from it?
Yes.
Yikes,
This is headless WordPress Lite. Headless WordPress Lite in the sense that we're still using a WordPress plugin to generate this. Do you guys know what I mean when I say headless WordPress?
No.
So what headless WordPress is versus having your WordPress website installed on a host on your server somewhere, right? And then all your people visit that site and each page is generated just for them. What headless WordPress is you have your WordPress install hosted somewhere else, typically locally, and then all you are doing is using the WordPress APIs, like the WordPress APIs or GraphQL. I see I'm losing some people, but this is fine. To then use the content of your WordPress site to generate a static site, and then serve that static site. How many of you have heard about Gatsby?
That was the one I was trying to think
Yes.
But you're saying use WordPress, so Gatsby has like their own site static.
Correct.
Sites, right? So is it a plugin that converts this WordPress into a Gatsby?
So integrating Gatsby and WordPress is beyond the scope of this talk, though I hope you'll catch, there'll be a little joke later on. I was so fond of my little joke later on. I hope you all laugh as much as like I do with it. But if for true headless WordPress like that, you're using another service or code base, in this case Gatsby, to connect via either GraphQL or the WordPress APIs to your WordPress site, and the code is a two-way street typically, or the WordPress site that you have is just pushing up code to Gatsby, and Gatsby is re-rendering it in their own way. What this is doing is just creating a zip file full of .html, .js, .whatevers, and you're running all of that statically on just a site, on a like server. Does that make some sense? I didn't explain that. This is light because we're using a WordPress plugin to generate essentially a zip file of the site, and then that zip file is a static version of the site, instead of using another service or code base like Gatsby to connect to the WordPress site and update things as you go.
So then you would take that static zip file and then you would deploy it on like Netlify.
Yes.
Familiar with that one, or any one of the other ones that you showed, and then that's it.
Yep, and this particular plugin, if you pay for the premium version, it will do it for you each time you publish something new.
That was my question. I have a client.
This is WP2 static with the number 2.
I have a client who's obsessed with his Google page speed score, and like I think that would solve a lot of problems for him. But he does blog regularly. So
Okay.
for him to be able to do that, this would have to automatically be pushing that like every hour.
The premium versions, the WP2 static plugin does. This is the free version. It happens every time you click the big green button
You could
or blue button.
make it faster by putting in the CDN.
Yes. So that's what you would. So what all of these options are for the whole like automated version here. If you are serving it from an S3 bucket, you should have CloudFront, Amazon CDN, in front of that actual like bucket to serve things. Bitbucket, I don't use them. I'm not really familiar with that. Bunny CDN is the same way. You have a storage space that you're paying for. You use their like CDN on front. GitHub Pages is a branch of your GitHub repo that will serve a website from that branch.
A branch or a fork?
A branch. So what you can do is, if you choose GitHub Pages here, let me show you. It's under GitHub Pages. You choose what branch you're committing that to. This allows for you to use the same repo to have your WordPress Git code sent to it on one branch, like the master branch typically, and have the same repo on another branch serve a static version of that WordPress site. Do you see where I'm getting with this? That way we can combine both plugins like VersionPress and a static site generator, send their code to the same repo that is the name of your website or whatever you want to call it, and have one branch be your commit history of all the things you've changed on your WordPress site, so you can roll back things, and one branch be the static version of your WordPress site that is actually what the world sees if you choose to publish that. Yes?
What kind of page load speeds are you using?
So, I mean, Netlify has all kinds of different things that they show off about page load speeds. The site, so I don't have any clients that I'm doing this for right now. This is just for hobby and pet projects that I'm doing this for. I have sites that are entirely static site generator sites. Like my website is a Jekyll site. I don't know if you guys know what Jekyll is. Jekyll is the static site generator also made by the GitHub people. It's like Gatsby, but it's in like Ruby. So in general, you can get sub 1 second page loads on a large static site on a decent internet like connection, because everything is served in one bucket or one list of like files. There's nothing else to grab. There's nothing else that needs to be generated just for that one person.
So crazy. So it's like we use the future to go to the past.
Yes,
Interesting.
we have gone from dynamic websites on WordPress to static sites are so much faster. How do we go back to the Dreamweaver days, but not lose everything that we've done in the past?
So sorry.
Yes.
Just one other question. So for like e-commerce websites, it's probably not going to be great.
Snipcart. There's a company called Snipcart. So once you are creating a static version of your site, the plugins that you have on your site that require dynamic code are not going to work. Obviously, this works for things like comments. This works for things like WooCommerce or EDD. So what you would have to do is use the blank as a service companies that are out there, like checkout as a service, comments as a service. So I can show you.
So it's like a plugin just for that.
Yes. So I will get to that in the next few slides. But if you want to have an online shop, there's a company called Snipcart, where you basically shove their little JavaScript code in and you put buy now buttons across your site wherever you want to, and they have a full checkout experience on your static site, because they themselves are rendering things dynamically for that individual customer, not you. Does that make sense? Snipcart, Snipcart. So this is basically a summary of all the things that I talked about for the last over an hour. Geez, I'm sorry. This was supposed to be a sub-hour talk. Have your WordPress basically backed up through GitHub. You can host a theme. You make changes, push and pull things to and from GitHub, and create static versions of your site and host it for free or nearly free. I can do a talk later if you guys want to, all about site hosting stuff. Thing. As I said, my PowerPoint or the Google Slides are on my website. If you want to go through this list, these are great articles to read about using Git for WordPress. ChandlerWeiner.com. Pull up these slides. You can see them there. And then to go back to what I was kind of saying before, this is a great site that lists the tools that work for a static version of a WordPress site. So if you need to have comments, you'd use discuss. There's ways to keep contact form 7 still working in a static site. These three companies up here, their whole shtick is they will host your WordPress site statically. You commit your changes to something that to you looks like a dynamic version of WordPress. Every time you hit publish, they themselves will generate a static version of your site and serve that up. These four companies or ways of doing things down here are ways for you to do it yourself using the plugins I talked about previously. But that link there is a great way to see all of the other blank as a services you'll have to stick into your WordPress in order to get it to work once it's static. So perhaps I'll do a future talk. Do you get my little Gatsby logo flashed up? About headless WordPress entirely, but it's a little bit true headless WordPress a little bit beyond here. Any more questions now that I've been talking for over an hour? Geez. Yes?
Can a static site still be responsive with the screen size?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. CSS works its wonders. In a static site too. Yes.
So I have a follow-up question to that in the response sense. So I use AEM to try to do image renditions.
What's AEM?
It's like Adobe Experience Manager.
Okay.
It's
I'm not familiar with it.
My company has used it. But it's interesting how it's able to do different renditions as I go to tablet and mobile. So it's not the big image just kind of squished down. Do you know when it goes static if the server can still deliver different images?
I know you can do things like deliver WebP versions versus JPEGs or stuff like that. I haven't personally done different image sizes depending on screen size. I just stick with small compressed images typically. But I mean, it will resize things based on the window that the browser has. Yeah.
So like if you're using like figure instead of just a static image, or like using image with like source set, instead of just the standard, SRC, that'll change it, because the source set, what it does is it pulls based on what it needs.
Yeah, talk to Adam afterwards. This is the glorious things about having this wonderful meetup, is we get to schmooze and talk about all this kind of stuff. Any other questions?
Isn't this in the industry known as Jamstack?
Jamstack, yes. So JavaScript APIs. What's the M? Markup. Thank you. Stack. Yes. So Netlify, that hosting company, coined that term, Jamstack. Oops. Did I bump it? No signal. Ah!
Cut you off.
Yeah, clearly. Okay, there we go. So yes, this is a Jamstack site if you want to use a term like that. Yes. Let's move on. We change color. Oh, y'all are washed in purple glow. That's kind of cool from my point of view. Oh, no. Let's talk about Hacktoberfest. The reason that we're all really, truly here is to earn stuff, right? How many of you knew what Hacktoberfest is? Know what Hacktoberfest is? Okay, good. So Hacktoberfest is a month-long celebration of open source code sponsored by the hosting company DigitalOcean, plus a slew of other companies that pop in every sort of year to offer free swag. This year it's Dev2. They're a social network for nerdy people like us. And you can submit pull requests to GitHub. It can be through your own projects that you are actually working on. It can be through a fork that you made of someone else's project and you're committing something back to help them. You submit 4 good, meaningful, I've done something like good, not like added a period to the end of your readme file kind of things, and you get free swag. They've given out a t-shirt every single year. I'm rocking my Hacktoberfest 2018 shirt. And yeah, this is a fantastic time to learn how to use Git, how to use GitHub, how to start coding, and you don't have to actually write code. You can fix docs. Some companies have their entire documentation library on GitHub. If you see broken links, broken URLs, if someone is writing in English and their English isn't so, you can start somewhere and commit meaningful changes to either your project or someone else's project. All you need are four pull requests. They don't need to be merged. If they're closed, it's fine. They can't be marked as invalid, because then it's spam. But you need to just open 4 pull requests on your own repos or someone else's repos, and you can get free swag. So you would sign up by going to hacktoberfest.digitalocean.com. You have to create a GitHub account. You say, cool, this is my GitHub account. That's how they keep things tracked for you. They are only giving out shirts this year to the first 50,000 people. They have not reached this number as of yesterday. So you still have time to play around with GitHub and earn some free swag. And shameless self-plug again to my project at the earlier part of this list. There are other companies that also celebrate Hacktoberfest and give out free stuff. Twilio is giving out things like socks. Other companies are also giving out shirts. Every company has their own list of rules, but basically this is a fantastic time of year for you to learn about companies you either haven't heard of before or ones that you are passionate about that you want to actually submit some changes and help to. And during this time of year, you get a small little kickback as a thank you from some of these companies for actually doing so. Yes, Sandy?
All of the WordPress core training team docs are all on GitHub and would count as those 4 pull requests as well. So if you
that is correct.
don't want to actually code, but you still want to contribute to the WordPress project, because it's WordPress, there are opportunities there as well as working on other docs like Chandler.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, thank you. So this is a good list. This is just some list. This is something that I put together of some WordPress themed open source things. 2020, the theme is almost releasing very soon. You want to make some changes. Here it is, but before things go live.
Actually, it might be locked by now.
It wasn't as of earlier. But it might be locked. I'm not sure. But some things that I either use regularly this is my curated list, but just go on GitHub, search WordPress. You'll find all kinds of wonderful things if you want to give back to the WordPress world during this Hacktoberfest time of year.
You forgot.
Yeah, no, I don't. We're not going to talk about Trello. This is their Socialmedias, hashtag Hacktoberfest. And that's all I have, guys. That's it. So thank you for letting me drone on. If you have any other questions, you can come meet me up afterwards. But thank you for listening, and have fun.